Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one because you deserve it. You truly do. Let's watch.
I want to make sure you know that I am very sorry and I love you, and I don't ever want to put you in a position where you feel sad or hurt.
Okay, so that's great that he is the one that went up to her to apologize. Even if he thinks, I don't think I did anything that bad, but it doesn't matter because what she wants from me right now, what she needs is for me to show that I care, and I'm going to do that. Sometimes in a relationship, maybe all the time, it's not about who's right or wrong, it's who in this moment has the capacity to make that move. And she might not be in a place where she can do that because if I'm reading it right, there's a lot of triggering, a lot of trauma that's being stomped on for her. And even though maybe a lot of the things she was saying or the intensity of her reaction might have been unfair, so to speak, I don't know, but it's possible. It doesn't mean that he can just sulk and say, well, she asked, you've probably been in a situation like that where, at least according to your estimation, your partner has been unfair to you and you didn't do hardly anything to deserve it. And you're thinking, well, then they have to come to me. And maybe that is the right choice. Certainly we can understand that at times. But if both people in a long-term relationship can decide at times to be like, well, I don't think I'm the one to blame, but I'm pretty sure my partner is more triggered than me right now. So I have the ability to bridge this gap, and so I'm going to do it. I'm not going to lie and say that it's all my fault. I'm not going to fall on my sword, but I'm going to do the right thing, the loving thing, and say something like what he said. Let's rewind it because he's not saying I take all the blame because he might not believe that, but he is saying I care, and sometimes that's all that's needed. Most fights, research shows, John Gottman and colleagues here in Seattle found that the fights that couples will have, even for couples that work well, they will have the same fight over and over and over again. I think something like 60% or most of the conflicts will not resolve for couples that do well. And that is counterintuitive. You think, well, couples that are doing well, they must resolve all or most, of their conflicts. Well, it's the opposite. Most of their conflicts are not resolved, meaning that in the end, you don't agree on what happened, right? Like if this was one of those fights, they won't agree on the events with AD that, she'll walk away. So, they could have this work out and they could be a good couple moving forward. And Chelsea could walk away going, what he did was wrong. And I was completely in the right to feel and do all the things that I was doing. And he could walk away and say, I was having a private conversation with her and I was drunk and maybe I shouldn't have said it, but the amount of, she's the one that said it to AD, and then I get blasted in the hotel room all night, accused that I wasn't affectionate to her at all when I was. He could walk away saying that, and yet if they take care of each other and show that they understand, he can say, because right now in this moment he's saying, I understand I hurt you, and I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt you. That sometimes is what everyone's looking for. You don't, at the very least, it's doable, right? I don't need you to agree with me, but can you at least understand me? And that helps. So a little tip there. Let's rewind this.
I want to make sure you know that I am very sorry and I love you, and I don't ever want to put you in a position where you feel sad.
She has a very open face. She is receptive, eye contact. She's not rolling her eyes or turning away. That's also functional. And what he's doing right now is in contrast to what he was doing earlier, which was a lot of freezing and avoiding. So he's had a second to differentiate and approach her, which is, it's positive. I'm still very concerned. So if I had like a needle on a scale from 1 to 100 of like what's the chances that they're going to work out, it just got bumped up a little bit, but it's still not great.
or hurt.
I'm here for you.
Great. So she says, I love you, I forgive you. They have physical affection, eye contact, smiling. That shows affection and non-contempt. Now, I know a number of people think that Jimmy is just faking all this. I surveyed a lot of people. I sent the survey out before this episode was released. Over half, like 60% of y'all think he's already a no at this point. I wouldn't put money down on that. I think it's possible. Everyone could be a no, and we wouldn't know. But I would imagine he has questions after their fight tonight. But I would imagine that he was in it to win it in the pods, and at least his conscious mind is saying, well, let's keep trying. That's the way it kind of looks. But I don't know. I'm out of step with y'all in that. So, but if we assume that he's still at least somewhat in it to win it with her, there's evidence that they are. It'd be hard to do this if you were not into it and not into each other. It'd be hard to have that fight and fake something like this, unless you're a really good actor, which I can't imagine either of them are.
I just need you to hear me out when I feel sad.
Oh, yeah.
I need you to say your feelings are valid. I hear you. I want to just make the
I do hear you. I'm sorry. I didn't.
And she's being helpful by saying, I just need you to validate my feelings. And absolutely. I also think that he deserves an apology as well because of the way that she reacted. Some of the things that she said could be very hurtful. Saying things like, you are the least affectionate, or you never kissed me, you avoided me the whole night. I can't remember. It's been a week since I watched those episodes because these episodes come out a week later. But, she said some pretty hurtful things, some pretty stark, untrue things. He deserves to say, like, hey, when you said that, it hurt because because one, I do love you and I want to kiss you and hang out with you at the party, and I did. And then you said earlier that I never did those things. And one, that hurts my feelings because it makes me feel like you're willing to just make that up in a fight, or you don't recognize that I'm there doing those things, or I don't know. It feels very discounting. I'm also kind of worried because you were so quick to rewrite history that had just happened earlier in the night, and that makes me worry that whenever there's any kind of tension between the two of us, you're just going to completely ignore what actually happened. And then you're going to be very hurt, naturally, because that story is very hurtful. And then you're going to punish me for something that I didn't even do. I think he has the right to say something too. I doubt he will, though, because I don't know if he's in connection with that or it's not his style or something. And I imagine that she might actually respond well to that. I don't know, but I could see her doing that. I wonder if, in the past, I was wondering if she'd been through therapy, and I was at least thinking that she hadn't been through enough or the right sort, because during the fight, there was no moment where she exhibited, not only during the fight, but the whole night, like at the party, there was no moment, or maybe there was one little moment when she was talking with Laura, but there was very little differentiation. There was very little moments of like, well, wait, am I going too far with this? Maybe some of this is justified, but am I going too far? Also, there was no moment of like, well, like when she was jealous, because she was angry at him for a lot longer. I got the impression that Jimmy was talking to AD while they were like twirling and stuff. That could have been a few minutes. And for the rest of the night, maybe hours, she was sulking and upset at him. And there was no evidence at any point that she said, am I overreacting? What's going on? Or the ability to say, well, I'll talk with him about this later. It's not that big of a deal. It's a concern, but I can get this back on track and manage my emotions. And there didn't seem to be any. Now, maybe they edited it weird, and that's possible, of course. But given the fight, it looked like the kind of fight energy that had been mounting throughout the party, just getting worse and worse, sort of like with Danielle and Nick, how there was a few hours while Nick was at the party and Danielle was sick and didn't go to the party. Danielle looks over the rail, sees Nick talking to a woman, triggers her apparently, and the longer that goes by of that seed of anger and resentment and trigger of the trauma, the longer it has to grow, the bigger it'll be by the time you show up, right? So Nick gets back to the hotel room, and it's, if Nick had come back right away, if Jimmy had pulled her aside, or if the party had just randomly ended earlier and they had a chance to talk, I'm going to take a guess and say that her resentment and anger and being out of touch with what had actually happened would have been less intense. So that just shows that, if she has been through therapy, it's not enough, or it's not the sort, or I don't know, worries me. Like with AD and frankly Clay, they'll have issues and they'll say, well, I have this issue, and AD's been through therapy and talks. So my point is that there does seem to be some evidence that she's been through therapy, or at least has some psychology mindedness, because she's talking about validation and has the ability to use that term and is differentiated enough to know that's what she's wanting. So that's a strength.
You gotta work with me.
I love you with all of my heart.
Are you down? Are you down to work with me?
Mm-hmm.
I love you with all my heart too. I just put sunscreen on my face.
Did you?
Okay, yeah, it's going well. The needle is getting more positive as a prognosis, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of a couple that we saw have a fight this early on, or a fight of this sort at any point. Well, we did see Chelsea and Kwame have some doozies. Maybe not this bad, but it didn't look good. So there's that. But this is sort of like Cole and Zenib. It's sort of like Nick and Danielle. And it never seemed to recover. It just seemed to get worse. And so I don't know. I'm sort of bracing. I'll hope for the best, but expect the worst.
What's this? Please, God.
Okay, so at the end of this episode, I thought I would look at some TikToks and some articles that have come out about the Jimmy, Jessica, Chelsea situation, because it's a little snapshot into where I'm at right now, which is the day of the next batch of episodes coming out, because I thought it'd be interesting to kind of see where the audience is at, because you're watching this after the season is over in all likelihood. But there's a TikTok video that someone sent me that is on Chelsea's TikTok. So apparently it addresses something related. So let's watch that.
This would be a great time for the people who have ever told me that I resembled her to come forward. Please, I'm begging you.
Okay, so that's her video. Yeah, I suspect that more than one person has said that to her, and I could see them legitimately saying such a thing. So I think she's responding to the internet hatred of her and saying that she's doesn't look anything like Megan Fox and she's just lying and all this, Now, I think there is a legitimate criticism that she even said such a thing, because she just inserted that idea without Jimmy asking for it, and that's not advisable, because one, you're messing with the experiment. And when people talk about the experiment, like, who cares about the experiment? Like, you're there to meet someone, and if you have to sort of mess with the experiment to make it work for you, then do that. But I think there is at least some wisdom to following the format, because it might actually help to follow the format to actually facilitate people actually falling in love with people's hearts and minds, because you might both benefit from sticking to that format. Involving looks and other kinds of things might interfere with that soulmate connection that it could develop. So I get that, but let's look at a couple other things here. All right, this next is an article on E.T., and it's about the EpiPen thing that Jessica said. All right, so it says here, Jessica explained her comments to ET, Entertainment Tonight, in a recent interview, saying, "I said you're going to choke when you see me. I didn't mean it in just the physical sense of the word. I meant it in the sense of the word because I know how much I have to offer somebody." Okay. So that's possible. We don't know what Jessica was saying, but it certainly didn't sound like that. So she's saying, when I said, when you see me, you're going to choke, you're going to need an EpiPen, she claims to have meant that you are going to realize how much I have to offer somebody when you see me. I'm trying to think what I would have told Jessica to do if I were a friend of hers. Well, this is my style, but I don't think it would work because no one ever does this, because even famous people or politicians don't say stuff like this. But I'll just say what I would have said if I were Jessica. I would say, yeah, I agree. That was ugly of me. I shouldn't have said that. It's arrogant. It's pompous. It's upsetting. It's mean to Chelsea. It was really bad. I don't know any other way to put it. The only thing I can say is that I was suffering. I was in love with what I believed to be Jimmy. I don't know if I really knew him, but at the time, the pods, I was invested in that. I thought I'd found my soulmate. And when he dumped me, when you watch the episode, he doesn't say much. He doesn't apologize really. He doesn't have any warmth, and it just felt so mean. It felt really mean at the time. Watching it on the TV a year later, it seems kind of insensitive. It felt at the time like my world was coming to an end. It just and I was triggered from my own. It doesn't excuse it, but my own issues from abandonment, and I talked about that in the show, and a pretty ugly part of my personality came out. I don't generally think those sorts of things. I just wanted to get him, and I just felt like he was passing something up. But something like that. I almost never see people say stuff like that, and I don't know why. Because it would be believable, a lot more believable than. I didn't mean it in the sense of being physically attractive. I meant it in that I have a lot to offer. You almost make yourself look worse when you say something. To me, in my eyes, she looks worse because now I think she's either lying or she doesn't understand herself. That's not a good look. So you kind of have to, well, one, just don't lie, and two, just say, here's why I did it, and I'm sorry, and it was bad. The only other version that people say is, I take full responsibility for what I did, and I apologize to Jimmy and to Chelsea. End of tweet. It's like, well, what are you acknowledging exactly? Anyway. All right, here's another article on men's health, and it's an interview with Jessica. She says here, the interesting point here is after they broke up, she says to Men's Health, I think Jimmy and I came to the understanding, I think that they were going to break up at probably the same time that I think he and I came to the understanding at probably the same time that we weren't meant for each other. So no, I never had an afterthought about it. Oh, so they're asking if she had an afterthought about Jimmy. So she's saying we both came to the same realization at the same time that we weren't meant for each other. It didn't look like that, but could be. I mean, I could see a scenario where Jessica, by the time she was broken up with, she had had a full night's rest, and the next day, by that point, she'd be like, yeah, we're not meant for each other. And even the previous day when she has that first date and she's pressing him like, well, we need to talk about us. And he's like, I just want to change the subject. And I can see how after that she would think, I don't know if this is going to work. So I don't think she's lying in this instance, but the way she's wording it, it's like it was a mutual breakup. It certainly didn't look that way, right? I think that when they had that date, when it got a little prickly between the two of them, I think she was 100,000,000% into Jimmy, and I think Jimmy was on the fence and maybe like 55% going to Chelsea. maybe because of the kid and also because of what he thinks as Jessica as having an imposing personality or something, an aggressive personality. I've been over this already, but it just looked like Jessica it has a pretty normal level of assertiveness. Anyway, so she's wording it that way, and I don't know what's in her mind. And it wouldn't be unusual for people when they get dumped that in order to preserve their sanity, they rewrite history a little bit in their own mind. So, all right, this article is on USA Today, and it's another interview, and it says, in a recent interview, Jess reveals that she didn't just come back to deliver this scathing dig, about the you're going to choke. She says, when you see and realize what you missed out on, that's what she said, right? So then she responds to this. She says, the day before, when I found out he was going to be proposing to someone else, I actually planned on leaving. Okay. And I went back that night and I was so sad. I think going back to the hotel. I woke up the next morning and I was like, actually, no, I remember who I am. And I felt like I owed it to myself to have that conversation with him that one last time. Yeah. I think that was a good choice. Later in the article, Jess is talking about the moment when Chelsea comes back and tells Laura that Jimmy told Chelsea that he loved her. And she says Chelsea wasn't even coming in and saying it in a loud and proud braggadocious way. So I think Jessica's saying Chelsea wasn't being annoying with it, and she was just sharing her good news, she says to Laura. And then she goes on, Laura was just having my back and letting me know that basically I wasn't going to be the one who he was proposing to. All of the other girls were so supportive. They all wanted me to go out on my terms rather than getting broken up with. Yeah. So Jessica is saying, look, Laura was just having my back. Yeah, and I think that's likely. That's where Laura was coming from. I just don't understand the method. It was so particular, but I've already been over that. All right, well, let's adjourn there. So I want to do a little PSA, public service announcement, about colonoscopies. I just had mine. I'm 53, and I was supposed to get mine, I think at 45 is the recommendation. And I waited a long time because I was not looking forward to the whole thing. There seemed to be so many things about it that seem unpleasant. The laxative concoction that you're supposed to take. I don't think I've ever even taken a laxative in my life for any reason, so that didn't seem like a welcomed opportunity. And then, surgery and hospital. I mean, it's not surgery, but, it's in that direction. And something going up your butt. and also, what are you going to find up there? Because I know I don't eat enough fiber, all that kind of stuff. And I put it off. And then what actually pushed me over the edge, because I kept getting reminders on my, portal, my medical portal, and my doctor would sometimes remind me. And I have a friend who is I don't know if he's a proctologist, but I think he deals with cancer of the colon. He's a medical doctor. Anyway, I ran into him, and he's like, why haven't you had your... But what really pushed me over the edge was watching Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds of those guys. And they, on YouTube, I believe, posted a little featurette about their whole process. And it looked like a lot less intimidating based on, what they were saying and what was happening. And so I thought, oh, that doesn't look so bad. It doesn't look great, but it just looks so bad. So I made the appointment. And then, so actually another factor was scaling back on YouTube. So one of the, when I decided to scale back on YouTube, I was telling you all that I had a really long to-do list of chores around the house and other kinds of things. And one of the things on the list, because even though I could have made the appointment at any time, I figured there'd probably be a few days where I wouldn't be able to work, which ended up being true. And I work, it's, when I'm doing episodes twice a day, I'm working, 12, 15-hour days without any days off. It's like tax season for me, and to do that all year round. So I just thought, it was an easy, convenient excuse not to do it, because I probably could have. I know I could have if I really wanted to. But anyway, so when I scaled back in January, I eventually got to that item in my to-do list, and I said, okay, well, I have the time. Let's do it. So I did it, and it was way easier and better and simple and easy to deal with. I don't deal with needles very well, particularly IV kind of stuff. But the laxative that you take, so you drink a 4-liter jug of water with this like powder that dissolves into the water. And I put like Crystal Light in, which my doctor said was okay. And drank that sucker, and it didn't taste bad. I even tasted it without the Crystal Light. It didn't taste bad at all. I'm telling you all this because if you are hesitating and you have access, I'm hoping that, like Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds did for me, maybe I could do for you. The laxative drink didn't taste bad at all. It tasted better than things that you buy at the store. Like, I don't like Red Bull particularly, and it kind of had that direction of taste. Red Bull doesn't taste like it tastes like something that shouldn't be drank to me. Each to their own. But anyway, it was kind of bland. So putting the Crystal Light in even made it better. It was fine. Then when I had to, go, normally when we think of diarrhea, we think of it being unpleasant. I think partially because it is to some extent, but partially because you're usually sick. This is what I was thinking. But you're not sick when you're doing this. It's just diarrhea without having the flu or whatever. And it lickety split, no problem. Wasn't painful. I have a bidet, which makes so that I don't have to chafe with a bunch of toilet paper all the time. And that's another reason I have a bidet. I talk about bidets sometimes. So that, and then starving myself, I was really worried about that. I almost never go for an extended period of time without eating. It's I think since I was born, I don't think I have gone for that long without eating. And because my colonoscopy was in the afternoon on a Friday, the day before on Thursday, I had to stop eating at 9 a.m. So I didn't eat from 9 a.m. until the next day, and then I ate after the procedure at 6 o'clock. So I've never even come close to going that long without eating, ever. I eat a lot and frequently. So I was kind of worried about that, and that wasn't great, but it was okay. It was doable. I started feeling kind of spacey because of that, I think, but it was fine. Then day of, go in, everyone's nice, walking me through it. The IV was fine, and they gave me the propofol. I was out. My understanding is that in other parts of the world, they don't actually give you that sort of anesthesia, and you have to be awake during it, which I don't know what that's like, so I can only speak to, 1 second I'm talking to the anesthesiologist, the next moment I'm waking up in recovery. Apparently the procedure, if everything goes well, only takes 20 minutes total in terms of something being inside of you. And recovery was fine. I felt pretty good, and my behind was not sore at all, which was surprising. You'd think it would be damaged or raw in some way. But, and they said that it's as wide as a pinky. So, that's not very thick. It's not like a video camera like from the 80s going up your butt. It's, it's this tiny little thing. And maybe that's why there was no soreness, because I'm guessing they put a sleeve in there so they're not like rubbing. Anyway, I don't know what they did. And I got a clean bill of health. There were no issues, and so I don't need another one for another 10 years. They gave me pictures of it, which is bizarre. They labeled the pictures like, this is your rectum from the other side. and this is your DDD. And later that day, I was with my wife watching The Crown and having a big meal and feeling pretty good. So it was lickety split. It really, I mean, I wouldn't sign up to do it as voluntarily without needing it, but the benefits are tremendous. I actually have a friend that died from colon cancer a few years ago, and her mother actually died of colon cancer when she was young, and she's a very smart, responsible person, and from an early age, maybe in her teens, she decided that she was going to be very, very healthy, no drinking, lots of fiber, lots of low stress lifestyle, and she did colonoscopies very, very frequently, and she got cancer, and it progressed really quickly, and then she died. And so, especially if it runs in your family, but sometimes you don't know if it runs in your family because it wasn't told to you, or the individual didn't know they had colon cancer and they died from something else earlier. Anyway, point is if you're on the fence and you're of that age and your doctor's saying, do it, and you're like, take it from me, as someone who doesn't like to do any of that kind of stuff, it's not a problem. It's no big deal. And when you get that clean, and the other thing is if they find stuff while they're in there, they can fix it so that any sort of polyp or otherwise, they can excise real quick while they're in there so that it won't develop any. It's sort of like with skin cancer, right? So another thing that you should watch out for is a dermatologist looks you over, and if they see something, you excise it or take a biopsy or just burn it off or cut it off. I've had that. And you get older and, it gets real, and people die from this sort of stuff all the time. Or even if you don't die, it progresses, and you got to go through a much more elaborate treatment than just a colonoscopy, So, and along those lines, any of these things, whether it's colonoscopy or other kind of screening, and if you have access, hopefully you have access, and if we can all vote for politicians that increase access and ease of these kind of treatments being available, blah, 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 then let's all do that, of course, as well. And I want to tell particularly you men out there that are watching, I don't know about you, but if you're socialized like me, I want to be tough, and I don't want to ask for help. And I also don't want to face things that make me afraid. I don't want to give up control. And it's well known in the data that men die sooner than women. And one of the reasons why, a major factor, is that men don't ask for help. They don't go to the doctor as quickly. Like when men are older and not married, then they're drastically more likely to die sooner or die from preventable things. It's because of toxic masculinity. So if you're one of those guys and you are dragging your feet and avoiding, I'm talking to you, pal. So get off your ass and have your ass looked at and take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.